I will call to order the August 5th Verona Plan Commission meeting, and we will begin with the roll call. Mr. Sayre, please.
Alderperson Yurs.
Here.
Commissioner Linder.
Here.
Commissioner Ritter.
Here.
Mayor Hokumer.
Here.
Commissioner Horsfall. Commissioner Lytle. Here. And Commissioner Heidensen is absent tonight, excused.
We have a quorum, so we will proceed with the agenda. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of the July 1st meeting of the Plan Commission. They've been included with your packet. What is your pleasure? We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Ritter. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Next, we have a public hearing regarding the conditional use permit amendment to the group development for Vincenzo Plaza Development located at 950 Kimball Lane to allow for the construction of an office building. I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Ritter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Yurs to open the public hearing. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried, and we are in the public hearing stage. Mr. Sayre, if you would provide the background, please.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to construct a 5,866 square foot office building immediately west of the existing Gray's Tide House. This would complete the entire development in the area. If you recall, back in 2006, when this was initially proposed, this area of the development was actually proposed as a bank with a 3-car drive-through. Obviously, times have changed, and the applicant's proposing to put an office building with leasable office space there instead. This did appear before the Plan Commission in June for an initial review. In general, the Plan Commission was receptive to the project. The setbacks are consistent with the existing Gray's Tide House. It'll be set back approximately same distance from Whalen Road as the restaurant. From a stormwater and drainage standpoint, they've added a rain garden to the site plan compared to the last submittal. That's to accommodate some additional stormwater on the site. As discussed previously at the last Plan Commission meeting, there is a shared parking agreement with the office and gas station parcel to the east. So cars and vehicles are now legally able to park on that parcel. And they've also have a letter from the daycare across the street to the north, which authorizes them to park vehicles there as well during those peak overflow times. Architecturally, the building is similar to the other office building that is on the property. Staff did go through the findings as required by ordinance, and it meets all the findings of facts. And we do recommend approval with the condition to prohibit indoor commercial land use entertainment uses similar to the existing office building. Those uses are restaurants, taverns, bars, things that have higher traffic volumes. And we'd also have a condition of having a photometric lighting plan as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone representing the developer that wishes to speak at this point? Is there anyone that wishes to speak representing the developer? Not the developer. Okay. All right, then we are in the public hearing stage, so anyone who wishes to speak, if you'd please come to the podium. There should be a sign-up sheet there for the benefit of us and those watching at home. If you could state your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Janice Remus, and I live at 630 Military Ridge Drive, which is right diagonally across the street from Gray's Anatomy, or whatever they call their restaurant there. And the PB gas station is there. The childhood care center is there. And my question is, when he said it was, this notice says that it was immediately west of that developmental area, I didn't know what he was talking about because of the fact that there is the runoff for the water that is supposed to go into that area. So I don't know whether he was talking about using part of his parking lot as the space where he's going to be putting this first story building. Is that it? And was it also already zoned for business use when he, back in 2006? Or was this a zoning change?
Mr. Sayre will be able to answer those questions, and he'll also be able to pull up a map and show where the proposed development would be.
And we'd also like an idea about the traffic kinds of conditions that are going to be related there. The children's school walk, as you may be aware, comes right down that pathway, and all of the children from the school, hundreds of them, go across that street. So I'm very concerned about the traffic in the area. And I think the police department is too, because they have a speeding posted sign there trying to warn people to keep their traffic down to 25 and 15 when there's children present. So yes, I have a concern there for the children, the number of children in the neighborhood who have to use that pathway to get across the street. So if somebody can explain that to me, I would appreciate it. And I'll save my objections until I'm informed.
Okay. We are in the public hearing stage, and I'm certain that the Plan Commission members will have questions as we move along. So we thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak specifically on this agenda item? Is there anyone that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Third and final time. Anyone who wishes to speak? If not, I would accept the motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Ms. Ritter. Is there a second? Is there a second to close the public hearing? Second by Mr. Horsfall. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are in the public hearing stage. If we just adjourned the public hearing stage. If we were to take action this evening, it would be a recommendation to the Common Council. So with that, we have questions from the Plan Commission members. Questions or comments? Questions or comments from the Plan Commission members? Mr. Lytle?
I'd recommend we start with responses to the questions that were raised in the public hearing.
Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Sure. So the building is located west of Gray's Tide House. So on the right here is Whalen Road. Oh, I'm sorry. So Whalen Road is located on the right side of the screen here, and this is facing north to your right. So Whalen Road is here, Gray's Tide House is right here, and the building is located immediately west of the existing Gray's Tide House. It's actually a parking asphalt area right now, and in the process of this project, they're proposing to construct a building there and also redesign the entire parking lot and stripe it and lay it out. So the building will be left or west of the existing restaurant. The zoning on the property is suburban commercial. It was rezoned, I believe, in 2006, 2007 when the initial proposal came forward. So this is not a zoning change. What this is, it's an amendment to the group development for the entire project. And what a group development is that it's any project that has multiple buildings on its property. So with this one, we have the gas station, the office building to the east, the restaurant, and obviously this future office building as well. So it's actually an amendment to that conditional use permit for the group development. The walkway for the school is located approximately right in this area, and that will be unchanged. One thing they are doing, they're shifting this driveway slightly from its current location to the west towards that walkway. But staff did look at that. We didn't have any issues with how that was being relocated or shifted because it wasn't going to impact that existing walkway. That still will be a marked crossing for pedestrians and school kids in the morning. So we didn't have any concerns with that as well. And regarding the speeding from the police department, when this was initially proposed, I did speak with the police chief about this proposal, and he didn't have any concerns with it.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Other questions or comments from the Plan Commission members? Mr. Lytle?
I think it's been noted at this part of the city that there sometimes are parking limitations, especially in the evenings if Gray's is having a special event. I don't see the way this building is set up to be an office building during the day when there's typically low use at Grays, to contribute any more to that issue. There will still be parking problems. This will use up some spaces that are in existence currently for Grays. But with the addition of the shared, or the agreement to use the parking across the street at the daycare center in the evenings, along with the agreement that's in place between the two tenants, this won't worsen the parking situation around the area, but admittedly, the parking situation in that area on busy nights isn't ideal, like we saw that on Friday night, for instance. But I'm supportive of this, and I think it finishes out the development in a good way that complements the other uses.
Thank you, Mr. Lytle. That, the parking issue was my first major of concern, and as I read through the report, I was a little surprised to see that the building will only eliminate 2 current parking stalls. So there's a loss of 2. I anticipated it would be more than that. Other questions or comments from the Planning Commission members? Other questions or comments? Mr. Horsfall?
Again, I just want to comment that I think that they've done a real nice job in this area already, and this will continue on with another nice building. So I think it's an asset to the city, so I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Those were the comments I was going to make on the end. We've worked with this developer in the past. They've done some exceptional buildings. We just had a recent example of that again, and I'm in support of what I see as well. Ms. Ritter?
I echo Jeff's comments, and I, too, am in favor of this new addition to the city.
I'm not seeing any. Mr. Horsfall?
Just I guess a comment or a question to everybody in the commission, I guess, is, we put limitations on, not limitations, but we've watched the growth of apartments, we've watched the growth of single-family homes. Do we similarly watch the growth of office space and kind of keep track of that, or is it the more the merrier? It's more of a question for the
Mr. Lytle?
planners.
Mr. Sayre, I'm sorry.
You can
The conversation I've had with the applicant is they intend to white box the whole building, and this would just be leasable space, and they feel there's a strong market in the city for this smaller office space. More of the professional, I think there's a vet out there in one of them right now, and a management type company out there as well. I think they see the similar uses, there are demand to it. Regarding looking at an inventory of office spaces in the city, I haven't given that any thought.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, I would accept a motion again, and this would be recommended action to the Common Council. Do we have a motion? Motion by Ms. Ritter, seconded by Mr. Linder.
with the conditions.
With, yes. Ms.
Want me to
Ritter?
read it?
Yes,
That's
if you
fine.
would, please.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend that the Common Council approve the conditional use permit amendment for Vincenzo Plaza Group Development to allow for the construction of a single-story office building, subject to the following conditions. 1, indoor entertainment land uses, including restaurants and taverns, are prohibited land uses, and that a photometric plan is approved and granted by the Director of Planning.
We do have a motion, we do have a second, and it lists the two conditions as outlined in the staff report. Are there any further comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no, and that motion carries. So that will be on the agenda for the council meeting for next week, Monday. Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 5, which is a public hearing on the municipal ordinance amendment to create a wellhead protection ordinance in section 9-1-57 of the Code of Ordinance. I would accept the motion to open the public hearing. We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Yurs. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are in the public hearing stage. I would ask Mr. Sayre to provide the background, please.
The city is proposing to adopt a wellhead protection ordinance that regulates land uses around existing and future wells. The goal of it is to prevent contamination from entering the wells. It's a common ordinance that many municipalities in the state of Wisconsin have in place. And what we're proposing is to adopt an ordinance that's very similar to what the DNR regulates. So what the DNR regulates is separation distances for certain uses and certain items that may pose a hazard to well areas. So our ordinance is modeled after that. In the packet as well is there's a map, and what the map is looking at is travel distances for contamination, how they could contaminate the wells itself. Right now, we're not proposing to restrict anything within that map area. We may come back at a future point and look at those areas and see, do we want to, put some conditions or restrict some uses within those areas. But as of right now, we're adopting the model that's very consistent with the NR 811. So with that, we find that it does further the city's goals in protecting the water supply, and we recommend that the Plan Commission forward the positive recommendation to the Common Council.
You've heard the explanation, the background from Mr. Sayre. We are in the public hearing stage. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Ms. Ritter. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Horsfall. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are now on agenda item 5A, which again, if we were taking action, would be to recommend action to the Common Council. Questions or comments from the Planning Commission? Mr. Horsfall, please.
Looking ahead a little bit, so if we were to plot a subdivision that was going to be on wells, would this be any wells that would be subject to this ordinance? Private versus public?
It was the same question that I had, so Mr. Sayre?
If we're referring about the same project will be discussed later tonight, this would be one of many ordinances that would have to be amended and changed. And we did talk about that internally as staff, and it's one of those, we're still looking for that direction from the Planning Commission and the Council regarding that type of policy of those types of developments. So for the time being, we left that in as paren C, as what the DNR model is. Now that's something that we'd have to look at in the bigger scheme of how we could accommodate that type of development.
Further questions from the Planning Commission or comments? Ms. Ritter?
If the consolidation would have gone through, we would have had to deal with this issue as well, and how to deal with it if some of the town wells would have been applicable to this, correct?
Mr. Sayre?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lytle, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a section discussing non-conforming, existing non-conforming locations. Did we, through the development of these radius maps, do any sort of database research to identify how many, if any, exist already?
Mr. Sayre?
Well, the map, once again, the map, we're not actually regulating the map yet. We're looking at the uses in NR 811. They would be treated similar to any non-conforming use. So if someone were to come in and they were, let's say, doing something they couldn't do because of this ordinance, it'd be classified the same way as any structure, any use would be classified. They can continue operating in the manner they've been operating in. I think in some cases they have to at least adopt a protection plan if something were to happen, a spill. But they would still be considered legal non-conforming. If they came in to change a use, we would look at it at that point and evaluate the use.
Mr. Gunlock, please.
Yeah, during the time they developed the wellhead protection plan, they did look at existing sites that could have contaminants, gas stations, fertilizer storage areas, salt storage, things that could contaminate it. They did try to locate those, and there is an extensive chart in the back of that plan that gives those locations and what the contaminant is.
I was just curious, as we go through the process of enacting this, it was in the city's best interest to at least attempt to notify those businesses, those locations, so they don't inadvertently change greater than 50% of their value sort of construction and become non-conforming, out of compliance with the wellhead protection plan, and whether that process is onerous because we have a list of 300 potential, or whether that's 15 and the notification would be fairly straightforward. I think it would serve the wellhead protection program to at least make that attempt if it's not overly taxing on staff.
Additional questions or comments? Additional questions or comments? Mr. Yours.
Just thinking about the first topic that was brought up, have the other cities that have passed this type of ordinance, have they had to deal with any private wells and that issue? And if so, do you know how they handled it?
Mr. Sayre?
I'm not aware any off the top of my head how it's been handled. I know in my other places I've worked, it's been allowed if the property is brought in. It's usually for the replacement of systems. I don't think the question, in my experiences, has been looking at new developments on those types of systems. It's more if something fails and service is not available. Those are the ones I'm familiar with, but not new types of development where either doing one or the other. It's mostly when something fails, I don't have any other option. I'm not sure if Bob has any thoughts on that or not.
Mr. Gunlock?
No, I'm sure that there are other communities that have wells, public wells that are close to private wells, and that the wells fall within probably the 1,200-foot radius of the well. Again, many of your private wells are very shallow. The city wells here are all cased down to about 250 feet, and the well is actually, most of our wells are actually in the 1,000 to 1,100 foot depth. So it's a thing that if there are private wells within that zone, if they're existing, we would allow them to remain. If they had a failure and needed to fix it, we'd probably allow them to remain. New wells, as Mr. Sayre said, if there's new private wells that come in, we're going to have to look at it, and the ordinance will have to be modified to allow those. As it stands right now, if they're within the 1,200-foot area, they would not be allowed, and we'd have to modify.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Lytle?
You mentioned the search that you did, or the list you came up with. Did you, I'm sure DNR has a GIS search to identify any registered wells. Was that part of that process? Whether there was wells that haven't been abandoned that are still in place from 50 years ago, or?
No, we did not look for private wells. We looked for other contamination sources like gas stations, dry cleaners, those.
Other questions or comments? I'll just give you my comments. This is a troubling one for me. I like to maintain as much flexibility for the city as we possibly can. I mean, and do the right thing, but maintain that flexibility. I know that the staff would really like to see us get an ordinance in place, and we do have the potential for amending the ordinance down the road. But I really do like the idea of allowing as much flexibility as we possibly can for the city. So those are just my comments. It's a difficult one for me. Other questions or comments? Mr. Linder?
Yeah, just so I'm clear, so we pass this, and then if there is another development that requires the personal walls, that would require amendment for that development or each individual user in that development?
Mr. Sayre?
The ordinance would have to be amended. This one would have to be amended along with a variety of other ordinances as well. We'd have to take a look at all our ordinances if we were to allow private septic and private wells within the city. There'd be a complete review of the zoning ordinance along with all municipal codes. So this would not be the only amendment to it.
So passing this is kind of making assumption the city as it is right now, not would it be, 6 months from now, so to speak.
Yeah, this is
You
more
have to
the
adapt
status,
to that. Yeah.
status quo, I guess you want to call it.
Further questions or comments or potential motions? Mr. Horsfall?
At this time, I'd like to recommend to the Common Council approval and adoption of the wellhead protection ordinance.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lytle. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. So that will be on the council agenda for Monday as well. Next, we have discussion and possible action regarding initial review for Epic Systems Corporation to construct a food service building located at 1979 Milky Way. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Thank you. Epic is proposing to construct a 64,000 square foot two-level food service building just north of their Building K. So Building K is right here, Deep Space is wrapping through here. The existing Northern Lights travels north-northeast, and then food service would come off the end of K right there. The first floor of it would be 32,000 square feet. It would be for dining space for employees. There'd also be some food preparation and serving there as well. The lower level would be also for as a kitchen space, and also I guess would be as a more of a transition space. There's some garbage areas down there, some recycling areas, and a loading dock, kind of a coordination central area for a lot of things that go on in that lower level through multiple buildings. But the main focus of it would be that first floor, which would house their primary serving area for their employees. This is the initial review. As everyone knows, Epic is a part of a larger, what's called group development, which we discussed earlier tonight. So it would take an amendment to that conditional use permit. Our initial review of this, it does meet all the bulk setbacks except one, which is the height requirement, but there is an exemption in the ordinance for heights. The proposed steeple feature of the building here is approximately 50 feet. The ordinance allows buildings up to 45 feet, but it does allow for architectural details to exceed that 45-foot height limit by 10 feet. So when they move forward with that conditional use permit amendment, we'll just make a note of that in the permit that they're allowed to, if the Plan Commission wants, allows to exceed that 45-foot height for this architectural feature. Access to the site will be by underground tunnels for employees. There won't be much change from a traffic standpoint. Traffic from Yoda, the parking structure, will continue to be rerouted around and will continue to be examined by Epic as they move forward with their planning. Parking, no additional parking demands are necessary for this proposal. Detailed landscaping plans have not been submitted yet, but in future submittals they will be included. There will be outdoor seating for employees on a patio area on the front of the building here. Staff has no concerns with that. It will add approximately 32,000 square feet of impervious surface to the site. Epic has master planned their stormwater ponds, and there is sufficient capacity within those ponds to accommodate the additional stormwater. The building itself will be constructed with high quality materials and will have a similar look to King's Cross Station in England. They'll have large amounts of glass, brick, and stone materials. The clock tower feature will be a distinctive feature of the site along with this glass entryway here. While the building does have some similarities to King Cross Stations, staff is supportive of it because the building does blend with the existing surroundings. And through the use of higher architectural materials, it will create obviously a very signature piece for Epic on the property. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone representing Epic that wishes to speak?
Good evening. I'm Steve Dickman from Epic. Glad to be here again tonight. With me today, should we have questions that I can't answer are Dan Grothe from the Cunningham Group Architecture. The Cunningham Group has been involved in the design of all of our buildings since we started here, and Nathan Lockwood from D'Onofrio Kotke and Associates are civil engineers who've worked on all of our campus projects. Give you a little bit of a status report. EPIC currently has approximately 6,800 employees. The vast majority of those employees, as you know, are at the Verona campus. And as you all know, we're in the process of designing a 4th office campus. As currently envisioned, that campus has 3 distinct elements. First of all, underground parking for 1,500 cars. This is the same size as our facility for our first office campus. This parking structure was approved in May of 2013 by the Plan Commission and the Council, and we'll plan to start construction of that this fall. In addition, we plan 5 office buildings for this campus. They'll be that'll have in total about 1,500 offices. Again, the building size and the total number of offices involved are approximately the same as our first office campus. We are currently working on the design of those buildings, modifying those, refining those designs, and anticipate being before the Plan Commission and the Council this fall for your review and consideration. And the last element is this food service facility. Cassiopeia, the food service facility we built with Campus One, is operating well over design capacity. When we first designed that facility, we thought we would have maybe, on a really good day, 750, 800 people for lunch. We're now running well over 3,000. And though we have mini cafes located at other parts of the campus, there's certain areas of our campus that are underserved from a food service standpoint, and with the addition of Campus 4, the situation will not get better, it'll get worse. Hence the need for another major food service facility. As I mentioned, this was designed to not only serve Campus 2, but a substantial part of the learning campus, which does not have any kind of mini cafes or dedicated food service in that facility, and Campus 4. And this is the building we're reviewing today. As Mr. Sayer mentioned, the building will be connected underground to both Campus 4 and Campus 2. While this is a 2-story building, in only one level is exposed. There's 32,000 on the upper level at grade, which will be primarily final food preparation, the servery, and seating area. The below grade portion, which will not be visible, will house additional food preparation, storage, circulation, and mechanical spaces. So all the mechanical equipment serving this space is located underground. We don't have rooftop units or things like that. So all of that stuff's put below ground. All the circulation, all the materials coming in, the loading docks and whatnot are underground. So none of that will be visible from either the neighbors or the other parts of the campus. As Mr. Sayer mentioned, we'll be using high-quality materials as we typically use, brick, stone, metal, roofing, and so forth. And they'll blend. The facility will not be a twin of our current buildings, but will blend well with our current buildings. Again, our landscaping, which we don't have all finalized, will be up to our normal high standards, and we'll be bringing those plans in for city review. It too will be heated and cooled with geothermal. The area of the proposed building is currently in the urban service area and is well served by public utilities. It's zoned suburban industrial. It is not in the TIF, so it's outside the TIF. And as Mr. Sayer mentioned, the stormwater will be handled using our existing stormwater retention pond number 4, which we intentionally upsized and oversized to handle not only this building, but the potential Campus 4. And with that, if there are questions.
Are there questions or comments from the Plan Commission members? Mr. Linder?
Just a quick one, how far will this building be from the neighborhood?
I looked at that just before the meeting. I think it's between 550 and 600 feet from the nearest home. And as you know, we're building the berm in between. So I don't even know how much, if any, will be visible from the neighborhood, but it's well over 500 feet from the neighborhood.
Okay. So my knowledge then is the potential campus 4 or 5, I think it was, would have been 400 feet. Is that correct?
Right.
So it'll be a little bit more
Close.
than that.
It'll be further than that. It'll be directly north of our building K. So it's an area where it's currently a road and a temporary surface parking lot. So it's going north. It's not moving east towards the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Yurs?
Yeah, my question kind of went along the same lines. Since this has come out, have there been anyone from the neighborhoods with any concerns or questions?
I have not been made aware of, on this particular building, any concerns. Maybe Mr. Sayers heard something. I have not.
Mr. Sayre?
I have not heard any myself.
Mr. Linder?
I'm not sure anybody knows from the neighborhood. 'Cause I'm in the neighborhood, and the only reason I know is because of the meeting. Nobody, neighbors.
All I know is we have, as you well know, we have frequent meetings with neighborhood residents. We have set up a special website that if any neighbors have any concerns, they contact us and we get back to them immediately to try to address those concerns. And to date, we have not heard anything.
Just Mr. Horsfall?
Have you ever had any comments from the neighbors from the first cafeteria of the smell being so great,
No.
so appetizing that they want to come in?
Well, that doesn't mean they don't come. We have a lot of visitors. I don't know how many are from the neighborhood and how many aren't from the neighborhood. But we've never had any complaints of obnoxious odors from the food service areas. I think we do a pretty good job. For example, in the summer, many times we'll have the dumpsters emptied on a daily basis. We're very cognizant of that, and we've got enough people in very close proximity to those facilities, so we're pretty careful about that and pretty touchy.
Mr. Lytle?
Just, I think, the nearest existing building is Building K.
Correct.
And
Well,
so-
yeah, to this building, yes. In fact, it'll be linked underground.
And so this building, you said a good portion of the working part of it is below grade.
Correct.
But it's listed here as a 2-story building. So the bulk of the structure is what, less than 30 feet tall, 20 to
Yeah, I
30
think
feet?
to the ridge, and Dan, what is the top of the roof is like 26 feet or 27 feet? 32.
Okay. How tall by comparison is Building K?
Oh, building K is 55 or 60 feet.
Okay, so it's
It's much-
significantly shorter than...
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Horsfall?
Once again, this is a great project, and so definitely full speed ahead.
Thank you.
I know we talk about this every time you're here, Mr. Dickman, about how great of a job Epic does and the partnership that you have with the city and also with the community, and we really appreciate the opportunity to work with you and the other folks that represent Epic. Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 7, which is discussion and possible action regarding site plan review for the Verona Area Needs Network to allow the Verona Area Needs Network to make a site plan and building changes at 513 West Verona Avenue. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to occupy space at 513 West Verona Avenue, and this is the St. Vincent de Paul building. And what Van is proposing to do is occupy the back portion of it, and as part of that, they're going to make a few minor site enhancements to it. What they're proposing to do is install a sidewalk along the side of the building, a door, some new overhead canopies, and then also a fencing area to screen the mechanicals that would be located within that area. And this would allow Van to occupy the space and use it as their only site actually in the city itself. So from a bulk standpoint, we took a look at the new improvements. They'd be set back 34 feet from the west property line. That's the property line to the Holiday Inn. Parking and access would be unchanged to the site. People would park in the front of the building and then walk to the side, and then any pickups, they do pick up in the rear back this way as well. As part of the project as well, I should note there are some existing overhead doors located in the back of the building. They'd remove those too. No additional landscaping is proposed, and no additional lighting is required. Some minor architectural changes are proposed to the building as outlined previously. They're generally minor in character, and staff has no concerns with it. So with that, staff's recommending the Plan Commission waive the initial review and approve the site plans for the Verona Area Needs Network located at 513 West Verona Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone here representing the Verona Area Needs Network that wishes to speak on this topic? Not seeing anyone. Questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Mr. Yurs?
This proposal is some minor changes, and it's going to produce a great need for the city and to at least meet those needs and grow in a much larger space. And so I would urge people to support this.
Thank you, Mr. Yurs. Ms. Ritter?
This does not need to go in front of the city council, correct?
Correct. Mr. Linder?
Does the city have an, I thought years ago the city, in part of an agreement or something, said they would support or always provide space for, I think it was a food pantry, and that was initially in that building there. Is that still the case, or?
I believe what is on the records is that, if I'm correct, that the city would provide up to 2,000 square feet to the Verona Food Pantry. That's what's currently on the books. That doesn't mean something can't be changed, but to my belief, that's what is on the record.
The city doesn't have any involvement with this location anymore then? Okay.
My understanding is no. Other questions or comments? I know personally I've seen the building in the past. We looked at it for possibly some other needs for the city. I think on that area between the property and the Holiday Inn, what is being proposed here actually makes the building look better, and I like that. So I'm in support as well. Other questions or comments from the Plan Commission? Do we have any proposed action? Mr. Horsfall?
At this time, I'd like to approve the site plans for the Verona Area Needs Network located at 513 West Verona Avenue.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Yurs. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Next, we have agenda item number 8, discussion and possible action regarding initial review of a site plan for a proposed retail development located at 611 Hometown Circle. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to construct a 8,620 square foot building located at the corner of Hometown Circle and East Verona Avenue. At this time, the applicant, at least at the time of proposal that I received, had not identified the proposed users for the site. With that said, though, staff believes that the end user here with the patio and the drive-through will most likely be a restaurant of some type or indoor food establishment, and probably most likely the end user as well, based upon the patio. Most likely the internal users will be a retail use of some type as well. A site plan approval is required for this project, along with a conditional use permit for the drive-through, outdoor seating, and any potential indoor commercial entertainment land uses. From a bulk standpoint, we looked at that. The building is set back approximately 19 feet from Verona Avenue and 16 feet from Hometown Circle. This property is located within the Verona Avenue Design District. Those setbacks do meet those requirements of that district. One important thing to note is the building will not have a true east-west orientation. These parcels, there's 4 parcels in the front of Farm and Fleet, and all 4 are challenging to make that a true east-west orientation, because as soon as you start shifting the building, you start really losing a lot of parking. It makes it quite challenging. It's easier for the smaller users like Dairy Queen because you're working with the smaller footprint of the building itself. So with this one and most likely with the rest of these lots in this area, it's going to be difficult for those users to meet that orientation requirement. Staff is supportive of waiving that in this situation because it is challenging to do that because it's gonna lose a lot of parking in the area. So we do support waiving that orientation requirement. Parking and access, they're proposing 62 on-site parking spaces for 7 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. While specific users have not been named, that parking ratio in general appears to be sufficient for the site itself. But with that, we'll do a complete calculation once those users are actually named for the site. Access is proposed off of Hometown Circle with a shared access drive with the property to the east. Staff supports that shared access drive. One of the things with these lots that we're trying to encourage is making sure they're connected with one another so people don't have to exit onto Hometown Circle, leave the existing parking lot, come back out, and then go into a different parking lot. If they're connected, it's a lot easier for vehicles to travel easily through the lots itself. So we do support the shared access drive in that area. No landscaping plans were submitted. Future submittals will require landscaping plans. One item of note that will require is low-growing shrubs along Hometown Circle to screen the headlights at night from shining across an apartment fleet. So that's one thing the applicant is aware of and has agreed to do. Drainage and stormwater, precise plans are not submitted for that. However, the applicant intends to utilize underground storage, and assuming they do that, there won't be any issues with stormwater. The proposed architecture of the building is modeled after the Farm and Fleet. The applicant's proposing metal panels and ephes material, and the base would have some split face block. While the look of it is very similar to the Farm and Fleet, staff acknowledges that the property is located within the design overlay district and would like to see some more brick added to the building. And specifically where we'd like to see it would actually be on the storefront areas, so showing some brick in these areas and also in the fronts as well, on the sides. We feel that would bring a higher quality design to the project and would make it pop a little better and up the standard in that district as well. One thing that we do appreciate the applicant is doing is they're proposing 2 outdoor patios. That's something that in the district that it is encouraged, and we encourage the applicant to actually look at what Dairy Queen did for their fencing requirements. The Dairy Queen fencing is quite nice looking, I believe, and it'd be nice to carry through that wrought iron and the brick that the Dairy Queen did as well. So we encourage the applicants to take a look at that as the plans progress. One item of note as well is they're proposing a monument sign on the east side of the property. There is an existing Farm and Fleet sign on the west corner here, and one of the things when Farm and Fleet was approved back in 2007 as a planned development, in the PIP, Farm and Fleet was allowed to construct those 2 larger monument signs as a quote-unquote trade-off for a larger sign. They said, well, we won't, these 4 outlots in front of the business would not have any additional monument signs in front. Now, when Dairy Queen was approved in 2012, the Plan Commission did permit another monument sign in front of Dairy Queen. Once again, we're back to the situation where we have 2 monument signs now on a property that are being proposed. The PIP does not allow it, and by ordinance itself, the ordinance says each property can only have 1 monument sign. We've asked the applicants to go back to Farm and Fleet and talk to them about that, and the impression and the answer we've kind of gotten is Farm and Fleet will not allow the tenants to go on their sign. So with that, I've actually encouraged Farm and Fleet to contact me. They have not contacted me to date. I'd like to talk to them about doing a master sign plan for the remaining parcels out there, because this is a question or issue in staff's mind that probably isn't going to go away. We have 2 more vacant parcels out there that we're going to possibly come across this signage issue. If the Plan Commission decides to approve it for this one, we're going to have 6 monument signs on 4 lots. It's a question for the Plan Commission to consider, and obviously Farm and Fleet to take a look at as well. So we encourage the applicant to talk with Farm and Fleet, and obviously have Farm and Fleet contact staff as well and discuss that issue. With that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicants.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Comments or questions from the, well, before we do that, is there anyone that, from representing the development that wishes to speak? And please, if you would, identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Brad Koenig with Schulfer Architects, representing the developer for this parcel. I won't go through everything, as Mr. Sayer has eloquently went through, but basically we're proposing a multi-tenant, single-story building, 8,600 square feet. We have not identified tenants to date. We are still working through that, and as they become available, we will disclose that information. But we are still working towards that, and as you can tell by the site plan, we are identifying a couple exterior patio areas. The intended use would be, a smaller restaurant, again, and then retail as well, as far as those tenants go. We will address the landscape in our next submittal, and we agree with Mr. Sayer's comments about low shrubs blocking the lights to the Farm and Fleet to the north, and then also in the elevations we're suggesting a nicely landscaped lot, as well as along Verona Road, possibly incorporating the piers to a similar look as the Dairy Queen, along with some landscape screening as well, to make those areas nice and inviting for people. One of the tenants that we have not necessarily identified, but the opportunity to have a drive-through. And so, as you can see on the site plan, we're showing that location, and then also, just identifying a dumpster location in order to organize the site. Since it is kind of a three-sided building, we want to make sure that both the architecture and the site kind of relates to that. I think once a building goes to the east, that trash enclosure and that drive-through becomes, I think, less of an issue, and it's really kind of hidden along Verona Road. Just one other item as far as the architecture goes. We're trying to incorporate not necessarily the Farm and Fleet design, but similar design elements to blend the area together, as well as the Dairy Queen. We are using some masonry elements, and would be happy to look further at some of those elements as Mr. Sayer has discussed. So, if there are any questions that I can address,
Are there any questions for Mr. Koenig? Mr. Horsfall, please.
Is there going to be access from the sidewalk to the two patios?
There would be a connection both from Verona Avenue, and then as you turn onto Hometown, there would be a connection to the sidewalk as well, to the front of the building.
Great, thanks.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Sorry, I got one more.
That's all right, go, Mr. Horsfall.
It's more for Adam, I guess. How does it work to have a shared drive? They have to have an agreement with Farm and Fleet, who has the property, or how does that work?
Mr. Sayer?
They'd have to record something with probably a shared access or driveway agreement, and since I think the property is still owned by Farm and Fleet, it'd be something they could do when they're in the process of purchasing the property. So it could be accomplished simply. It just would have to be done, obviously, when this is getting approved, so whoever purchases the lot to the east, when they're buying it, they know that it's in there. But it could be done concurrently with this approval.
Okay, great.
Mr. Lytle, please.
Well, I appreciate the staff report, and I'm very glad to see movement on those outlots in front of Farm and Fleet. I think the architecture can certainly be worked out. I believe that if Farm and Fleet or some entity that's in relationship with Farm and Fleet owns the outlots, and Farm and Fleet committed to having shared sign use as part of their PIP, then Farm and Fleet needs to document that they're not going to comply with what they agreed to with the city before we consider granting any exemption there. Also, in terms of the design overlay district, the east-west orientation was a requirement there, not a suggestion. I recognize that trying to squeeze a 3-tenant multi-use building onto this lot is maximizing the use of the lot and makes it more difficult to obtain an east-west orientation. That design overlay district was developed for a reason, and we forced the Clinky Cleaner property to have an east-west orientation on a much smaller lot, and I have no interest in deciding to bend that requirement in this situation unless there's a more compelling argument to be made. Similarly with an additional monument sign. Not to be a stick in the mud about that, I certainly support the project and think you guys are bringing some good ideas to the table, and I want you to be successful, but for me personally, that's not something I would approve.
Other questions or comments from Planning Commission members? Mr. Linder?
Just my initial thoughts, it seems like an awful lot of parking spots. It depends on what you have in for retailers or users that might affect what you actually need, but maybe there's room for, like Mr. Lytle said, to turn the building and lose some parking spots, because it just seems like an awful lot. And the other thing that I look at is that drive-through. It just looks, you're gonna cross traffic as you leave it. They're coming in, and you're gonna have, when you have garbage trucks doing the dumpster, I don't know if they're gonna do that in off hours, but they'll be blocking that lane. Just doesn't look very efficient. It bothers me there. I'm for the idea of putting something on this property. I like we didn't have to put a retention pond, because I wasn't a fan of putting 4 retention ponds on 4 different lots in the front. So that part I definitely like. I'd like to see a little more thought into it. Seems like it was just jam as much as you could onto this thing, stretch it as far as you could, and I just think you can do better.
Further comments? Ms. Ritter, please.
Thanks, Mayor. The renderings that were given to us, it appears that it's about 50% metal versus the stone, and I too would like to see a little bit more stone material put on this building. The east-west orientation, I agree with Mr. Lytle. I think that it's very difficult for us as a body to require one business to do it who wants to come to the city or improve their own parcel, and then have somebody else not have to abide by that. So I would like to see that stay. The monument sign, I agree that I think 4 different monument signs on this piece of property is a little bit redundant, given the fact that part of the reason why we approved the large monument signs which isn't your issue, but, and unfortunately, apparently that sign isn't available. I'm interested to know what is available on that sign, because Farm and Fleet also has little pop-up signs that they've put on the street side as well. Maybe that could fit on their sign. But those are some of my comments. I think I too am happy to see some additional buildings put on this site, and so I look forward to working with you guys and figuring this all out.
On the issue of the orientation of the building, I'll ask Mr. Sayre, has there been conversations with the applicant regarding different orientation? Mr. Sayre?
It probably could be reoriented. It comes down to, I'm not sure how much parking would be lost. I mean, the question is what's required by code. So you start slowly shrinking the building down, and at some point, it comes down to costs from the developer standpoint, and what is feasible and what isn't feasible. I've talked to other potential people for other parcels out there as well, and they've run into the same issue of this orientation. The issue is that when you start getting to these larger buildings, it's just difficult, because it really chews into the parking out there. And from what's required by the ordinance and what they need to actually put tenants into those spaces, it becomes more challenging. It worked well for Dairy Queen because it is a small building, and you're talking, there's about 2,000 square feet, so from a parking standpoint, it's easier to accommodate it. To specifically answer your question, I don't know if we actually drew that up yet, as if the applicant's drawn that up as a true east-west. It really might work, it might not. It's probably going to limit some tenants that go in there, though, because you're probably going to limit your indoor commercial entertainment uses. That's probably what it's going to do. But
Mr. Yurs?
For myself and for anybody else as well, could you go over why the east-west orientation was put in? Because I know this is also there's been an issue in some of the downtown meetings of why buildings have been kind of put in. I don't know, one of the terms was helter-skelter. I mean, you twisted different ways. And so if you could just go over the reasonings why we have that rule in place.
Mr. Sayre?
I don't know the exact background behind it, but it's to give a consistent look throughout the entire district. So the thought was if you line the buildings up on an east-west orientation, all the buildings at least have the same type of look to it as well. And that goes along with the minimum and maximum setbacks as well. You have buildings that are aligned the same, no matter where they are in the road, and they're set back the same. So it gives more of a consistent feel to it and design and element to it as well. I don't know why it was I was before my time here, so I can't really speak to the reasoning behind it. It was specifically chosen, but it's a way you do control the design. You do control the look of your actual district itself.
Further questions or comments from Planning Commission members? Mr. Lytle?
Yeah, I just point out that the design guidelines were in place when Farm and Fleet plotted out this subdivision, so it's no surprise to them that these would be requirements for anyone developing the lots. For me personally, I would be more willing to grant some flexibility on parking and look at any street parking that might be able to count, or if there's an indication the types of tenants you're going to may not need as many parking spots as we default to. But like I said, I certainly understand why you want 3 tenants, you want to have room for a drive-through, but I also want to stress that we have our requirements for a reason and we need to enforce them consistently.
Thank you, Mr. Lytle. Other questions or comments? I think the consensus from what I'm hearing from the Planning Commission members is that more work needs to be done on this. So we urge you to continue working with the city staff and look forward to having future discussion. Thank you. Next, we have discussion and possible action regarding initial review of a site plan for a proposed hotel, retail, and office development located at 710 East Verona Avenue. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to construct a 12,845 square foot office building at the parcel that's located east of Hometown Circle and east of the Farm and Fleet. So east of the Farm and Fleet, there's a vacant lot that's still owned by Farm and Fleet, and then there's also a small county memorial spot, and this will be the parcel adjacent to the Ice Age Trail that runs adjacent to the property. As part of this project, the big focus is the actual office building in the northeast corner. But as part of it, staff has asked the applicant to master plan the site, showing how it could possibly lay out for other users. And with that, they're showing some retail uses in the front and also a proposed hotel in the rear of the back. Setbacks are not shown on the site plan. The property is located within the downtown design and overlay district. Additional details will be necessary as the project moves forward. Access to the site will be from a proposed public street off of Verona Avenue. This would be a right in, right out. Staff requested a public street for the fact that there's a large number of users within this area, and it made sense to make it public versus private. When the office user develops, the applicant will be required to install this access drive, which goes into the county grounds. That access drive comes out to a full intersection where people can make a left and a right turn. And then obviously when the hotel develops as well, staff's going to require this access drive going to the west through the Farm and Fleet property out to Hometown Circle to be installed. And that's based upon traffic projections and just the fact that that's a lighted intersection. It'll make life easier for everyone making left-hand turns. Parking for the office use, the applicant's proposing 54 parking spaces, while 43 are required by code. The proposed office parking meets the ordinance requirements. They have some conceptual numbers for the hotel of possible number of rooms and possible number of parking spaces for it. Staff does have concerns that the parking for the hotel is not sufficient. The applicant is showing 40 shared parking spaces in this area. The concern that staff has with showing in that location is it's a long distance from the entrance. If that's how the hotel is set up, it might be unrealistic to expect people to park here and walk to the front entrance. Staff has requested the loading dock be relocated in the back of the building, which will be discussed more later in a minute. And if they were to do that, they could actually consolidate or better integrate these parking lots and actually use the parking that's closer to the door versus the parking that's further away. We understand why they're doing it, to separate the office and the hotel uses, but it's probably going to underpark this possible hotel in the future. So we're asking that they take a look at that. Another concern that we have is the challenge of the site is it runs long. It's not going east-west, it's going north-south. So it becomes challenging of how far people have to walk from the doors of tenant spaces. And it may meet the ordinance requirements for having the minimum number of parking spaces, but there are some concerns that the distances for those spaces might be too far, and it could impact the profitability or the fact of trying to get tenants to stay in those spots as well. It could make it challenging. So we've offered some suggestions of possibly eliminating the drive-through here, or taking a look at the whole site again and just seeing how we can better orientate that to make sure that those retail uses work and are successful. Landscaping, conceptual landscaping plans were provided as projects move forward. We'll need detailed landscaping plans. Specific drainage and stormwater plans were not submitted with the proposal. When the site was developed, there could possibly be some space to the east here on the county grounds. This lot was sold by the county, and I believe when they constructed the pond to the east, there was some excess capacity that was provided in that area. The applicant will need to work with the county to take a look at those numbers and finalize those plans as projects move forward. The project will require a land division. We're probably looking at a 1, 2, 3, 4 lot CSM, which the retail uses would be divided out by the road and the office in the back. We've asked for a conceptual CSM, but and the applicant has said it'd be prepared at a later date. Part of the reason we're asking for it is we have some concerns about the layout of this roundabout. It's got a lot of stuff kind of colliding in one spot, and it may need to be reworked. So that's something that we'll have to take a look at, and as the project moves forward, we'll review that closely. Architectural plans were submitted for the office user. The renderings have mostly metal and a metal roof, metal panels, split face block, and some composite panels on the front of the building. Once again, this project is located within the Downtown Design Overlay District. So we've asked the applicant to add some more details to the building, and while it may be set back a ways from the actual roadway, it will be highly visible from the hotel. So it's going to be important to make sure that it has high quality materials to it, and we've encouraged the applicant to at least take a look at that. As stated previously, we've also asked them to look at the loading dock and possibly relocating that to the rear of the property. The challenge the applicant has indicated is that if they relocate to the rear, they're going to lose more parking for the hotel. But staff believes it's important to have that relocated because people in the hotel are going to be looking straight into the loading dock, and now is the time to have that put where it should be, which is in the back of the building. Signage, no signage plans were submitted, but we'd like to see a master sign plan for this whole property. Obviously, with multiple users and multiple users being set off the building, off the roadway, it's going to be important to have some type of master sign plan to know what the signage will look like, and the applicant, if the project moves forward, will be working on that. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicants.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone here representing the development that wishes to speak?
Good evening, I'm John Brigham. I represent Country Farm Properties, and I guess one of our main points tonight is although we show 4 separate users on 4 separate parcels, we really only have one confirmed prospect, a very real prospect, and that would be for the office user. So although I think Adam's point is well made, we have to think ahead and make sure we plan for the inevitable. The hotel site may end up being another office building, for instance, and we don't want to get caught up in planning for just the hotel on that site. I think I have Jerry with Dimension 4 with me, and Tim Critter with TJK, who would be the builder. And Tim or Jerry can address maybe some of the concerns Adam had with the loading dock, which I think we can resolve that issue. We've talked about that before the meeting tonight, and Tim can maybe talk a little bit about the building materials.
Good evening. I am Tim Critter with TJK Design Build, and I represent the landowner in respect to the office building project only. As Johnny alluded to, Jerry with Dimension 4 is responsible for the overall sort of site development in respect to the 4-lot CSM that will be created. Our single largest challenge is really, as John Brigham mentioned, that the office building project is ready. These people are a committed user. They are a local agricultural, or regional, I should say, agricultural service association that is committed to staying in Verona. Very, very excited about this location. In particular, they're excited in respect to what the site has to offer on that northern side of it, with the views and the vistas of the bike path and the conservancy and whatnot. So we've really sort of designed the building to kind of push up into that corner with the possibility to expand to the north. And in preserving those views and those types of uses that would render themselves to those types of views, we naturally put the loading dock in a spot that Mr. Sayer doesn't like it. And it doesn't work real well for the topography, but I am in complete agreement with him that there may be a way that we can combine the access to the hotel, the access to our truck loading area, and really we're going to have cross easements all over with the parking regardless, so find a nice way where we could have access back to the loading dock, try to push it back to the northwest corner of the site. If you note on the site plan, there's a note that says future access, which will go westerly towards Farm and Fleet. That'd be a nice opportunity long-term for the semis then to be able to exit the site to the west. So I think there is a good solution in there. And as I mentioned earlier, our single largest challenge is we have to sort of design this project in a vacuum somewhat, in that it needs its own autonomy. You mentioned the fact that the office wants a clear separation from the hotel, but at the same time, we understand this is more or less a mixed-use project, even though there'll be property lines between the properties. We would like to see that blend a little bit better. I wouldn't be real thrilled if I was the semi driver and had to back down that long lane to get to that loading dock. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably make that either a 1- or 2-way traffic access, maybe put parking off it, soften it with a little serpentine bend. We've got some ideas. I think we can address that. So what we're looking for this evening is we're really looking for initial conceptual approval of the office building project. Tim Budworth with TJK, we have a couple of renderings we'll share with you. Didn't get into the packet in time. John Bano, our project architect that has met with Adam a couple of different times in regard to this project, has done a nice job of really creating that articulation and that detail that I think you were looking for in terms of the architecture. The architecture will be defined by the roof shapes. It'll have a very familiar vernacular with the gabled roofs, some very long overhangs, articulated with plenty of split blocks, stone sills, and then we'll use some accents of corrugated metal, not too unsimilar to what you saw at Farm and Fleet, but at a much smaller scale, much more office sort of hands-on scale, if you will. So I think we'll be certainly capable of coming up with a satisfactory design for our final approval, and I guess what we're looking for is the encouragement to move forward conceptually so we can get these people into their new home.
Thank you. Questions or comments from Planning Commission members? Questions, comments, any feedback? Mr. Linder.
So my first question is the office building that says future office development, that would actually go in first?
Yes.
Okay. I know this site is a little tough. We've seen it before, and my other question is, we've got 2 hotels in Verona. We got another one approved. This will be the 4th one. I guess I wonder, we got capacity for 4 hotels. You guys would probably know better than me, but.
Well, I'm not going to speak to the use in respect to the hotel, but I understand your concern.
Just that's one of my thoughts, just off the top of my head here. I kind of agree with some of the parking. It seems like you could do a little more shared parking with maybe potentially with the office and the hotel. A lot of the offices during the day, hotel, my experience has been a little more in the evening. That they could share a little bit more. I think you guys are on the right track with a little more brick and stuff on the buildings than the initial one.
Correct.
I hope you guys can come up with something good for this. I think you're off to a good start. Probably take another swing at it though. There's some of the things that we've talked about, with the truck loading. I saw that too. You wouldn't want to back up that far if you're a truck.
Right. One of the other things I'd like to interject is the city right away and the dedication of that access with the roundabout will take some time. And given our time frame for the office user, we would anticipate using that access to the county farms that comes in around the platted stormwater as the primary access in the interim, just to be clear.
And have you had conversations with the county about that?
I understand that that has, yes, has taken place and that those easements are currently in place. And I believe, I shouldn't say the easements are in place, but the arrangement has been agreed upon. That's
you.
the only left in, or right in, right out corner until that intersection is redeveloped.
Other questions or comments? Feedback? Go ahead, Mr. Linder.
Maybe just one more clarification. So you want to put the office development in first, the rest is still kind of up in the air a little bit on what the final design is? I know that you're not part of that, but maybe John is.
Yeah, we've actually had, even in the last 30 days, some conversation with 2 different hotel users. Hasn't gone any further than conversation. And down front, I think you folks, maybe it was a year or 2 ago, there were a couple restaurant users.
Mm-hmm.
Some other different restaurant users have surfaced, but nothing has really gone beyond preliminary talk.
So if you come back to us month, 2 months, whatever it is, you'd just be looking for approval for the office complex
Correct,
first?
yes, correct. Yeah. We just wanted to show how we could try to integrate some different uses.
So you're more, I'm just making sure everybody's
Yeah.
clear as well myself. You're more firm on the office, the rest is still just conceptual, what
correct,
could be,
yes.
what could be.
Yep.
Very
that's-
firm.
Yep, that's all we're asking for, real final approval on would be the office use.
Any further questions? Mr. Horswell?
So then the first thing would be the CSMs, and then you come back with your property specifically for that, right?
Correct. The 2 will be on parallel tracks. The CSM work will begin now that we have conceptual approval and that the Planning Commission supposedly would be in support of this office building project. And so that'll be happening at the same time, and we'll engage the civil engineer then to finalize the topography and site design and the CSM work, which will ultimately be recorded and need to be recorded before we move forward, but we hope to be back in front of this commission and,
Sooner than later.
yeah.
Any other feedback, questions, or comments? Mr. Lytle, please.
I guess, I think most people on the Plan Commission have some memory that this is at least the 3rd attempt that folks have had to try to develop this challenging site. So I'm glad to see options being thrown out there, and I think this is a really good start. Just can someone clarify for me, Country Farm Properties LLC currently owns this property or is in discussions to purchase this property?
They currently own it.
Okay,
correct.
okay. Well, not to jump off topic, but Adam, can you where is this in terms of a site location in relationship to the eastern edge of Hometown Circle? This future access, is that on the northwest corner of the lot? Would that have to cross another lot to get to Hometown Circle?
Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, the future, there's 2 future accesses shown to the west. The southern one would connect into the Farm and Fleet lot, and then have to go through, there's a vacant Farm and Fleet outlot next to the existing Farm and Fleet to the east. It's about a 5-6 acre lot. So that access would have to go through the Farm and Fleet lot and connect into Hometown Circle, most likely up where it kind of bends in. And then the one on the north side there as well would possibly connect into that as well in some type of fashion. And that was just shown as a placeholder, so the option would be available to do that if it was allowed.
Recognizing that you all don't have control over what Farm and Fleet does with their lot, I think it would be helpful for the next round of submittals to, as you're fleshing out the overall layout, to see how you would see that connecting up with existing roads and what sort of access you would need or access agreement you'd need with the other property owners to get that future access down the road. In terms of the office building architecture, I think Adam did a really good job of stressing how we're looking for a higher standard, especially on Verona Avenue, recognizing you're certainly set back from the street, but in terms of the elevation change, it will have high visibility, and I want you to be thinking of metal as an accent, not a primary
Right.
primary exterior material. But I think you've already obviously shown some willingness to move that direction, so I'm encouraged.
Thank you.
Other comments? I think we pretty much have consensus as well. Good start. We'd like to see something happen here. We look forward to continuing to working with you on the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 10, which is initial review of the proposed Brown